Hello everyone, welcome back to more 428 scrambled Shibuya eggs. Last time we saw the van explode. The blue van, the one from the intro, the one that supposedly has Maria in it. Yeah, that exploded. So, let's see if we can prevent that this time. What was this bat? So, Maria arrived on Koendori just in time to get caught in the minivan explosion. If she's going to avoid this fate, she needs to stay away from that vehicle. Someone else's actions can ensure that Hana Toyama crosses paths with her again. Then Maria will talk to her and avoid the minivan. I wonder who. Let's just continue off of Kano's and see where that gets us. Suddenly, a boom as loud as cannon fire shook the area. Something's wrong, Kano thought. That's no ordinary city noise. A column of black smoke rose up from between two nearby buildings. Passers-by stopped and stared, gasping in alarm. It's certainly fucked up. Then Kano saw flames. This hadn't been an accident. Someone had set off an explosion. The Shibuya precinct wasn't too far from here. Kano recalled the attempted bioterrorism attack on Kasumigaseki. 2 years ago, the Tokyo Metropolitan Public Safety Commission obtained the intel of an imminent bioterrorist attack within the city. Immediately afterward, an unoccupied minivan exploded outside the Metropolitan Police Department, and a device for dispersing bacterial contagion was discovered at the subway platform at Kasumigaseki Station. Having determined that city bureaucracy was the target, the Japanese government contacted the terrorist organization responsible in secret, making a deal to put an end to the threat. That incident had begun with the van exploding outside of the Tokyo MPD station. Already a large crowd of onlookers was gathering. Shouts rose up as they took in the scene. What's going on? What happened? Car is on fire! Kano called into HQ, then quickly slipped around to the back of the burning vehicle. It was a minivan. Peering at the flaming chassis, you could see that there was someone inside. Oh no. Could that be Hitomi? Once they had their hands on the antiviral, the criminals would have no further use for Hitomi Osawa. Already the body had been charred to ash. At this point, it was hardly recognizable as human anymore. Oh, it wants me to keep out. Wow, that's crazy. I can't even continue that one. Fuck. Oh, wait. Um... So, Osawa can do something. Let's... Let's go to the jump here and finish off Kano. Maybe it'll have us finish off Kano. I'm not sure. Several people were on the ground nearby, evidently injured by the explosion. A girl in a hoodie was crouched among them, doing her best to tend to their injuries. Miku Morita, while walking along, upset at Minorikawa for not introducing her to an Aiki Jujutsu dojo. She happened to cross the aftermath of the minivan explosion. Unable to stand idly by when faced with such a horrific scene, she pitched in as best she could to help the wounded. And I can jump back there, but that doesn't do me anything. Kano recognized her as the girl he talked to earlier during the traffic jam. "Police!" he announced. "Get back, let me handle this." The girl was visibly relieved. "Help her," she said. She pointed to a figure laying on the sidewalk a short distance from the burning minivan. It was a Middle Eastern girl. She appeared to be unconscious. "I think she got hurt rescuing another girl about college age." The girl in the hill. "I can't believe how fast she was." She spoke with a hint of awe. The way she moved to get that other girl. She was on a level way beyond mine. Kano took another look at the injured girl. Her figure looked rather delicate. It was hard to believe she was capable of such great feats of athleticism. He started toward her, but Stanley stepped ahead of him. "Leave this one to me," he said. His expression was unusually stern, even for him. "Do you know her?" Kano asked. The American didn't answer as he checked the girl's pulse, and then her pupils. "Hey, Stanley. Don't you have other things you should be doing?" Stanley snapped. "Fine, then." Kano decided to collect some eyewitness accounts. Patrol cars and ambulances arrived at the scene in a steady stream. Once the vehicle fire was under control, things gradually began to calm down. Several officers worked to cover the area around the burned minivan with a blue tarp. Kano got his questioning underway, starting by flashing his badge at a man near the front of the crowd. "Excuse me, would you mind answering a few questions?" The man puffed himself up. "How about you answer a few questions from me? Was this an accident or an attack?" "We still don't know many details," Kano admitted. The man shoved his finger in Kano's face. "Oh, let me rephrase that for you. This is a major incident." "Huh?" "I've been around the block a few times, and I know all your police PR lingo, and when you start talking about the details, that is 100% indicative of a major incident." "Well, I sure picked the wrong guy to try and talk to." Stifling his frustration, Kano continued his questioning. "Did you happen to notice anything unusual prior to the explosion?" "Unusual? Now that you mention it, I think I heard a cell phone ringtone." "A ringtone?" "No, never mind. Forget that. There's no way the ringtone on someone's phone would be audible through all that." The man was probably right, but somehow the idea nagged at Kano. He jotted down a note in his pad. "Kano." It was Stanley. Perfect timing. "Thank you for your cooperation," Kano told the man. Then he hurried on his way. Stanley stepped in close enough to whisper, "Who was that guy?" An eyewitness to the explosion, apparently. "Did he have any info?" "He said he heard a cell phone ringtone at the time of the explosion. Not sure if that's significant, though." Stanley stood silently for a moment, thinking. What about that girl? What about that girl? Kano asked. Has she woken up? No. I'm gonna drive her to the hospital. Huh? Why do that yourself? Just look around, Stanley said. He cast his eyes out over the scene. There were still many injured people lying on the roadside. It seemed the authorities hadn't sent enough ambulances. But isn't your car back in Maruyamacho? Kano asked. Under the circumstances, I think it makes sense for me to go back for it, Stanley replied coolly. Besides, I have a few things I'd like to ask her. Kano was curious. You do? He asked. Stanley's cell rang. Yes? Stanley answered the phone in English. As he listened, his demeanor changed. The blood drained from his face, and his hand began to tremble slightly as it gripped the phone. Kano had never seen him this shaken up. You got it, Stanley said at last. He hung up the phone and let out a sigh. What is it? Kano asked. Stanley headed into an alley without responding. Kano hurried after him. Once they were out of earshot of the crowd, Stanley finally spoke. That call right now was from Gordon, my superior. He broke off there, and for a long while he was silent. He appeared to be struggling with some strong emotion. Kano was getting impatient. What is it? If you're going to tell me something, then tell me. All right, Stanley said at last. I can trust you with this. Wow, never thought I'd hear you say that you trust me, Kano teased. But Stanley's expression remained dead serious. We were contacted on our end by the mastermind of this plot. Those international criminals you mentioned? Correct. Roughly 8 hours ago. They infected Maria Osawa with the Uwa virus. Then they let her loose somewhere in Shibuya. Hold on. By Uwa, you mean... Kano thought back to his earlier conversation with Stanley. These criminals were trying to get their hands on a new drug, an antiviral drug developed by Kenji Osawa that had been shown to be effective against the Uwa virus. Stanley hesitated before continuing. This is a killer virus with a 100% mortality rate once it takes hold. Kenji Osawa's antiviral is our only means of combating it. A mortality rate of 100%? It has an incubation period of 12 hours. In another 4 hours, Maria Osawa will go symptomatic. After that, she'll begin to spread the virus throughout the city. It's capable of airborne transmission? Following the onset of symptoms, individuals infected with the Uwa virus bleed from the lungs, and the virus is readily released into the air via coughing. The Uwa virus is highly resilient in open air and can survive even after saliva or other fluids have evaporated. Simply getting within 2 meters of a symptomatic patient is said to carry a high risk of infection. Bodily fluids from deceased patients carry an especially high concentration of the virus, and anything contaminated with such fluids must be thoroughly sterilized before it is safe. Stanley nodded. If we don't administer Kenji Osawa's antiviral before she develops symptoms... Yes? Kano's voice was trembling now. Stanley spoke with complete certainty. Everyone in Shibuya is going to die. Well then, we need to find Maria Osawa and get the antiviral to her as soon as possible, Kano said, panicking. Stanley remained cool. Just calm down. There's more to the story Stanley was interrupted by a strange sound from the upper floors of a nearby building. Unsure of what it was, the two men hurriedly relocated. Relocated? I was about to say that. They paused when they came to a vacant lot. Not that vacant lot. The place was deserted. No need to worry about being overheard here. You said there was more to the story? Kano prompted. The antiviral in question is stored in Kenji Osawa's laboratory. The lab is protected by a sophisticated security system, and apparently the storage area where the drug is kept requires fingerprint authentication from both Osawa and Tanaka. What? But Tanaka's... Kano couldn't help but gasp. Tanaka was currently a fugitive, the prime suspect in the kidnapping case. There was no chance of getting any fingerprint authorization from him at this stage. Is there any other way to get in? Kano asked. The door can also be unlocked via a password in place of the fingerprint scanner, but we'd still need to know what Tanaka chose for his password. No. In any event, Stanley said, it's essential that we track down and secure Maria. But, he went on, his voice grave. Even if we get Maria to safety, the mastermind is now in possession of the Uwa virus. If they want to, they can unleash a bioterrorist attack on Shibuya at any time. Put it bluntly, the lives of every man, woman, and child in the city are in their hands. Kano felt a pulse of fear deep enough to give him vertigo. He slowly tilted his head back and gazed at the sky, vast and blue as always. There had to be tens of thousands of people in Shibuya right now. Rumi and Shizuo were among them, and they might all be dead within a day. It felt so unreal, Kano's mind almost couldn't process it. With an effort of will, he shook himself out of his daze. Now was no time to waver. We have to try, he said. In the next 4 hours, we need to find Maria Osawa and figure out a way to stop this mastermind and the Uwa virus. The words were as much for himself as they were for his companion. Let's do this, Stanley. We might not always see eye to eye, but together I feel like you and I can find a way. But Stanley averted his gaze. My job here is simply to apprehend the mastermind. Kano felt a resurgence of his earlier anger at Stanley. Once again, he was putting his duties above human life. I'm sorry. Stanley's voice was a quiet mutter. You should get away from Shibuya as soon as possible, Kano. Kano hadn't imagined that the American would ever be worried for him. I appreciate the warning, he said, but I'm seeing this through to the end. This isn't the sort of thing you can solve with just an effort of willpower. Even so, giving up isn't the Japanese detective way. Stanley let out a nasal chuckle. Back to that again, are we? Same to you. Kano managed a tiny chuckle of his own. Listen, Stanley went on after a moment. This is just between you and me. The mastermind behind this kidnapping case is an arms dealer who goes by the name Alfred. Beyond simply selling weapons, illegal arms dealers are also frequently involved in smuggling weapons unlawfully obtained through deals with government or military contracts. In recent years, such enterprises have become increasingly globalized. Some dealers form smuggling networks that also deal in money laundering, drug trafficking, and more. Alfred? The attempted bioterrorist attack on Kasumi Gaseki, a hotel bombing in Chicago. Alfred had a hand in all of them. What do you know about this criminal? Kano asked. Stanley's expression grew even darker. Alfred's signature is extremely meticulous planning. But I don't mean meticulous in the same way you or I might normally think of it. Their plans are perfectly imperfect. Do you get what I mean? Kano shook his head. Alfred deliberately engineers accidents to make things complicated and unpredictable. It's difficult to get a good grasp of what's going on when the situation seems to be falling apart. People tend not to consider that coincidental. People tend not to consider that coincidental mishaps might be anything but. In the end, they don't even realize they were playing right into the mastermind's hands all along. Kano could hear the intensity in Stanley's voice. I'm afraid that's all I can say. Stanley held out his right hand. See you around, Kano, if we're still alive. We're still alive. Kano let that sink in for a moment. Nah, I'll shake your hand after we finish this case. With a slight smile, Stanley withdrew his hand. Then the two bumped fists instead. All right, we'll meet again, Kano. I'm sure of it. Yeah, see you then. Fed bros. No sooner had Stanley departed than Kuze's voice came in over the wireless. Attention all units! As of now, further investigation on the kidnapping case is suspended. The director's voice sounded strangely cold. I repeat, as of now, further investigation on the kidnapping case is suspended. Wait, hold on, sir? Kano shouted. What is it, Kano? Could you let us know why? We've received information that Maria Osawa has been infected with an unknown virus and has been released somewhere in Shibuya. That matched up with what Stanley had said earlier. An anti-bioterrorism security force. Wait, an anti-bioterrorism security force will probably be deployed in Shibuya. Terrorism involving biological agents such as bacteria or viruses. Biological weapons are easier to acquire and transport than nuclear weapons, and because they rely on an organism's natural ability to proliferate or infect, they can yield powerful results for low effort. For these reasons, recent years have seen widespread apprehension about the possibility that such weapons might be used by terrorists. In the event that a bioterrorist attack occurred in Japan, temporary quarantine and decontamination facilities would be set up in the area affected. This is no longer a simple kidnapping case. Our part in this is finished. No, it's not. We haven't managed to resolve anything. Kano, I assure you everyone else feels the same as you do. Kuze's voice had a cautionary tone. They're still performing the autopsy on the body found in the blue minivan that exploded. I'll let you know once we have a positive ID. Kuze out. Director! But the line had already gone dead. Left at a loss, Kano gazed out at the cityscape. The sight of the bombed vehicle had calmed down briefly, but now the news networks had begun reporting. The herd of onlookers was growing. There was also a sizable crowd gathered outside a large home electronics store. The large LCD televisions on display were showing a press conference being held by the governor of Tokyo. Kano might learn something new about the case. He decided to watch the broadcast. Working close with the administration, we are keeping a careful eye on the situation as it develops. The governor's expression was as solemn as he spoke. The moment he finished his statement, the reporters bombarded him with questions. This seems similar to the bioterrorist attack on Kasumi Gaseki 2 years ago. Is there any possible connection? What countermeasures do we have in the event that Shibuya is the target of bioterrorism? The governor was visibly disconcerted. If this does turn out to be a bioterrorist attack, we will establish emergency shelters with a large-scale quarantine station at Yoyogi Park. However, there are still many details that remain unknown. The politician was clearly struggling to maintain his composure. Can you comment on the rumors we're hearing that Shibuya might be blockaded off? Don't be ridiculous, the governor barked. What outlet are you with? Are you trying to start a panic when we don't even know all the details? Besides, it wouldn't even be possible to blockade the whole of Shibuya. The press conference continued. The governor and the reporters locked in a belligerent back and forth. Kano left the electronics store and headed for the cafe where Rumi and Shizuo were waiting. He had to tell them both to get far away from Shibuya. That'd be fucked up. That would be entirely like too much. I'd be screaming at my television. The Cafe Lautrec seemed quiet when Kano arrived. Shizuo was sitting alone. Kano scanned the establishment but didn't see Rumi anywhere. One of the staff greeted him. Welcome. Just one, sir? No, I'm meeting someone actually. Of course, sir. The hostess smiled, then went on her way. Shizuo was glaring at him. Kano walked over to him and bowed deeply. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. I'm Shinya Kano. You look even more like a knuckle dragger than I thought. Shizuo maintained his appraising stare. Rumi had something she needed to do, so she stepped away for a while, he said after a long moment. Kano sat down across from him. There was a laptop computer open on the table. Right now, the laptop is in sleep mode, and there's nothing on the monitor, but just before Kano came in, Shizuo was browsing an internet forum. He takes his user handle from a nickname for the apples he grows on his own farm, which are pretty little things, and nearly as sweet as honey. Bro, you can't be LARPing on a pop idol forum. Please. The waitress came by to take Kano's order, so he asked for an iced coffee. What are you using the computer for? Kano asked. I'm on the internet. Shizuo's voice was I'm on the internet. Shizuo's voice was low and gruff. This cafe has an internet connection? May as well start with a little small talk. So what? Again, Shizuo glared at Kano. The words wouldn't come. No, actually, this is no time to be making idle chit-chat. If they got infected with the virus, Rumi and Shizuo might die. Look. Please, you need to leave Shibuya right away. Shizuo's face contorted with confusion. What are you talking about? Why? Kano wasn't sure if he should tell the truth or not. He was strictly prohibited from discussing a case with anyone outside the department. As a former policeman himself, Shizuo ought to understand full well the secrecy an investigation required. But it wasn't like he'd just up and leave town without a good reason. Please listen, Kano said. Let's see what happens if we're like this. It's very important that you go, though I'm not at liberty to tell you why. Even if this was Rumi's father, Kano couldn't bring himself to leak secret information. His mind spun with regret. Well, I don't need your say-so, Shizuo huffed. I'm sick of this town anyway. Kano was a bit relieved to hear that. Does this have something to do with the case you're working on? Huh? You telling me to leave Shibuya. Does that have something to do with your case? Yes, Kano admitted. So why don't you run off with Rumi then? Shizuo's tone was frank. His name isn't Frank, his name is Shizuo. Well, I mean... When Kano didn't have an answer handy, Shizuo let out a single heavy sigh. Is your work important to you? He asked. Kano hesitated. Is it more important than Rumi? Well... Again, Shizuo cut Kano off as he waffled over how to answer. I used to put my work before my family. There was no question in my mind that combating society's ills and solving cases was worth any price. And because of that, I did some pretty reckless things. Almost wound up dead more than once. Shizuo paused, a forlorn look in his eyes. My wife did nothing but worry about me. So much that I didn't even realize when she'd worried herself sick. Oh, shit. I was so caught up in my work that I wasn't even there for her when she finally passed away. It was all so very absurd of me. The waitress came by and set Kano's iced coffee on the table. It sat there untouched until Shizuo looked at it pointedly. The tiny nod, Kano brought it to his lips. The bittersweet liquid was a balm to his parched throat. I told Rumi the same story, Shizuo continued. But I didn't tell her how absurd it was. I told her that her father only did what he had to. He took a sip from his glass of water. Rumi. She's very much like her mother used to be. Their personalities are almost identical. And I don't want her to suffer the same way my wife did. Shizuo's fist clenched in his lap. What was it that made you become a detective in the first place? He asked. Well, at first, I got the job because I thought it would make Rumi happy. And then I guess also because I thought it'd make you like me, sir. It was the truth, but Shizuo simply chuckled. If your goal is to get me to like you, you may as well give up now. I'm sorry, sir, Kano said. I can't do that. Aren't you this stubborn around Rumi? Shizuo grumbled. I love your daughter, sir. I want to keep her safe, to make her happy. And why is that? Whenever I think about her, I just feel so amazing. I'm sure that you or anyone can empathize with that. Everyone has someone they want to protect who makes them feel that good. It's an admirable thing wanting to be a detective and protect the happiness of the people. But that doesn't mean you need to ignore your own happiness in the process. What you say may be true, sir. Earlier today, my partner was stabbed, and today's his wife's birthday. Shizuo arched his brow. Is he going to make it? We're not sure yet. Last I knew, he was in critical condition. This is why I keep saying that the life of a detective is... Shizuo's words trailed off into a lamenting murmur. Even so, Kano was unmoved. Dictum number 1. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect. Ever. What's that? Something that a senior detective I admire very much said. It's the fundamental guiding principle I've stuck to as a detective. But I was wrong about the real meaning behind it. My partner was stabbed. There are people I want to rescue. So much has happened, and now I finally understand what those words mean. When you see someone in trouble, you help them. That's not something a good detective... that's not something a good detective does. That's something a good person does. Kano took a good long look at Shizuo's face. He had surprised himself finding the words to speak his feelings so clearly, and he wondered what effect it had on the older man. I'm sure that, from your perspective as my future father-in-law, my being a detective means that I'm putting my life on the line. But that's not entirely true. I can only be myself. This is the kind of person I am. I care about helping people. Even if I were a baker, or a brewer, or a bookseller, I'd still act the same way. You're being ridiculous. A baker and a detective don't assume anywhere near the same risks. Suppose that's true. Kano fussed with his hair sheepishly. Shizuo grumbled. I think I see what kind of man you are now. He sounded oddly defeated. Which is why now is no time to just futz around. Kano sat up straighter than Shizuo's weighty tone. A detective needs more than just passion. A detective can't solve all his problems with sheer determination alone. But at the same time, he needs more than just the ability to coldly assess a situation. He needs the conviction to stick to a case when it might otherwise seem prudent to give up. There was something new in Shizuo's expression now, and a gleam in his eye that hadn't been there before. Kano almost felt like he was being sermonized by a senior officer. You got that? You need a cool mind but a fiery spirit. A detective without both of those is worth nothing. Do you mind if I write that down in my notebook here? Look, Shizuo said, sounding suddenly embarrassed. Aren't you in a hurry? Don't you have to get back to your case? Yes, and sir, please, I need you and your daughter to leave Shibuya right away. Yeah, I hear ya. Kano conjured up Rumi's face in his mind. There was a chance he might never see her again. He forced the thought away as best he could. By the way, if I may ask, Shizuo said, what was it about Rumi that made you fall in love with her? What? Where's this coming from all of a sudden? Was it her looks? No, it wasn't just that. Kano found himself tongue-tied again. I mean, she is pretty cute. Even if this is my own daughter I'm talking about. Shizuo shocked him by grinning from ear to ear. Well, yes, she sure is, Kano replied, but it's more than just that. She's also very sweet and kind-hearted. Ah, she is, isn't she? Yeah, she really is. For the first time, Kano and Shizuo smiled at one another. You're a man who lets his emotions show on his face, Shizuo said, and for a detective, that's actually not so bad. Thank you, sir, Kano said. He bowed to Shizuo as he stood up from his seat. Never lose sight of what you're supposed to protect, huh? I like that. Wise words indeed. Kano turned to look back, and then bowed deeply to Shizuo one last time. The ability to coldly assess a situation. Kano knew what he needed to do. There was one thing that was nagging at him. No matter how hard he thought about it, it still didn't add up. Why would Tateno let all Karawan go free? He needed to get back to the precinct and get the truth from all Karawan firsthand. As he walked along, he considered what he did know about the facts of the case. Just what sort of plan had Alfred put into motion here? It seemed that Tanaka and Osawa held the keys to understanding. There had been relay handoffs of the phony attaché case, a relay that Tanaka had been complicit in. Then there was Hitomi missing, carrying the antiviral. Osawa had confirmed that himself. Kano was starting to form a vague picture of what Alfred was up to. The mastermind's goal was to acquire the antiviral, then obtaining the cooperation of Osawa and Tanaka was vital to that plan. After all, their fingerprint verification was required to physically access the drug. In order to overcome that hurdle, Alfred had presumably managed to win over Tanaka somehow, and then kidnapped Maria Osawa to provide leverage against her father. No doubt that was how they'd gotten Hitomi to take the antiviral with her to Hachiko. While the police were distracted by following the attaché case, Alfred would then take the antiviral from Hitomi. That was the general plan as far as Kano could surmise. Just then, a call from Kuze came in over the wireless. We've identified the body found inside the blown-up minivan. Kano's hand tingled as it gripped the wireless. Mamoru Tanaka, male, 40 years old. An employee of Akoshi Pharmaceutical. Positive ID was obtained from the subject's personal belongings. What? Kano gasped. If Tanaka was dead, it would now be almost impossible to access the antiviral drug in the laboratory. At this point, the only antiviral they had any chance of obtaining was whatever Hitomi was carrying. Kano thought back to what Stanley had said earlier. Even if we get Maria to safety, the mastermind is in possession of the Uwa virus. If they want to, they can unleash a bioterrorist attack on Shibuya at any time. To put it bluntly, the lives of every man, woman, and child in the city are in their hands. No. A chill ran down Kano's spine. If someone did release the Uwa virus, there would be no way to stop it from spreading. If Alfred really was planning a bioterror attack, Shibuya would well and truly become a city of the dead. He couldn't help but feel that the whole department was playing right into Alfred's hands. Kano staggered physically, stricken by the realization of just how terrifying a foe they were up against. Another ending down. Since I'm still drawing a blank on how to save Maria from the explosion, let's move over to Osawa. I've never trusted anyone, not on a fundamental level. Human beings are a type of organism that I can't get a true handle on through mere surface interactions. And the very fact that I have never trusted anyone else means that inevitably, no one else has ever trusted me. In the end, maybe the root of all my problems can be traced back to my heart. As he waited for Minorikawa to contact him, Osawa thought about his current crisis. Assuming Tanaka was behind the kidnapping, then he must have accomplices. And these criminals had mistakenly abducted Maria in their attempt to get the antiviral drug that was in Hitomi's blood. Maria and Hitomi were fraternal twins, but they looked similar enough to be mistaken for identical twins. Still, Tanaka would never confuse the two. The mix-up must have been made by some criminal who didn't know Maria or Hitomi personally. Insisting that Hitomi bring the ransom to the train station was obviously their solution. It had set her up for a second abduction. But piecing together this much with the kidnapper's plan only raised a different question. Why had Tanaka shown him those emails from Hitomi? Wouldn't the criminals want to keep information like that hidden? The more Osawa thought about things, the less they made sense. Just who are my true allies, and who are my foes? Mr. Osawa, a delivery has arrived for you. It was Kajiwara at the study door. Come in. I think you can trust Kajiwara. Kajiwara stepped into the room and handed Osawa a letter-sized envelope. Osawa checked the label. Kaming, the official Aya Kamiki fan club membership application enclosed. Kaming requires a 1,000 yen initiation fee and yearly dues of 3,000 yen. Membership grants several perks, including the opportunity to reserve concert tickets in advance of the general public. Osawa is fond of the members-only website content, which includes Ayakamiki's blog and exclusive videos. Right. He had requested the application from the day he'd gotten back from overseas. Would you mind opening that? Kajiwara asked, apologetically. What for? I'd just like to check the contents of any package you receive today, sir. It's possible the kidnapper may try to make contact you by mail. Osawa opened the envelope. Inside, he found the expected application along with several postcards featuring pictures of the singer. Whoa. Kajiwara peered pointedly at the postcard images. You must really like her, the detective said. And just what sort of music do you listen to then? Osawa asks, staring at one of the postcards. It was a striking photo that showed off Kamiki's expressive eyes. Let me think. Mostly classical, I suppose. Osawa raised a quizzical eyebrow. You know, Kajiwara continued, like Mozart and Chopin and the like. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, 1756 to 1791, Austrian-born music prodigy and classical composer. Famous works include The Marriage of Figaro, The Magic Flute, Die Zauberflute, and Symphony No. 41, known as the Jupiter Symphony. And Frédéric François Chopin, 1810 to 1849. Composer and pianist of the early Romantic era, famed as a national musician of Poland, left behind numerous solo operations. This is a solo piano operation, Chopin. It's going to be on-site procurement. You have to find your own fucking piano. Left behind numerous solo piano works. Famous works include his Nocturne, Opus 9, number 2, and his Piano Sonata, number 2. He hummed a few bars. Can't say I ever heard them. Are you serious? Kajiwara looked shocked. I'm familiar with the names, of course. I just never had much of an interest in music. Oh, that's such a shame. Would you care to listen to a piece now? I suppose I may as well. Now that he brought it up, Osawa was curious to know what sort of music Kajiwara enjoyed. The detective pulled a digital music player out of his pocket. Here you go. Osawa slipped the attached earbuds into his ears. He heard a flow of quiet strings that was soon joined by bold, dramatic horns. As the piece continued, it grew more profound and complex, and Osawa could feel his spirit calming. He took a deep breath, then expelled it through his nostrils. It felt as if the toxic gloom that had filled him was departing with the air. Before he knew it, nearly 10 minutes had passed. What do you think? It's quite nice. The theme of this piece is, Kajiwara paused for a moment and thought. Well, it's about how erudition can be... It's about how erudition can be boorishness. Accumulated knowledge. The term often connotes an advanced or esoteric understanding. Displaying a moderate amount can impress others, but pompously flaunting it is bound to put them off. Thank you. If I hadn't met you, I'd never have discovered this piece. He spoke the words unthinkingly, with unaccustomed frankness. Was this the power of music, then? I'm very happy to hear that, sir. Osawa gazed at one of the postcards Osawa gazed at one of the postcards as he let himself be drawn back into the music. Aya was scooping up the handfuls of mystical blue sand. The grains dripped down from her fingertips. I feel like I could be in this photo here, Osawa muttered. Like I've lived my life letting so many things slip through my fingers. Kajiwara thought for a moment before responding. I think anyone who's worked hard to accomplish something and focused for such a long time on that one thing is susceptible to those kinds of feelings. Accomplishing something means getting results. That's not where my problem is. Osawa removed the headphones and gave back the music player. You told me not to hide things from you, right? Kajiwara nodded silently. Then allow me to speak frankly. Leaning back heavily in his chair, Osawa took another deep, slow breath. I'm anxious. So anxious that it's almost crushing me. Given the circumstances, sir, that's completely No! Osawa spoke up before Kajiwara could finish. It's not that. It's not that at all. He shook his head vigorously. If the worst should happen to my daughter, how am I going to feel, I wonder? I'm not a man with a wide range of emotions. My heart is always cold somehow, and the truth is I've wanted it to be that way, which is why, if I do lose my daughter, my heart might remain unmoved. I may not even be able to feel a father's sorrow. That's what I'm anxious about. He felt his emotions twist inside him in a way that was utterly confusing. For perhaps the first time in his life, he realized how fickle a thing the human heart could be. It's all right, sir. Kajiwara flashed him a carefree smile. What's all right? People who really have a cold hearts don't worry about that sort of thing. The detective held out his music player again. Here, I'd like you to have this. Please, give it another listen if you like. I think it might help you calm your nerves. Osawa took the offered device. He had dared to open up to Kajiwara just a little, and to his own surprise he felt grateful for it. And how about one of these as well? The detective produced a banana from his pocket. I'm fine, thanks. Are you sure? Alright, I guess I'll take it. Osawa spoke irritably, then his expression softened a little. You know, you've been getting on my nerves all day. Really? And here I thought I'd been doing what I could to soothe your spirits, Mr. Osawa. It's actually been a real long time since I've yelled at anyone quite so much. As the words left his lips, Osawa found himself thinking back to one particular rainy day. Maria had been in 5th grade at the time. Osawa was standing in his daughter's room. In his hands, he held the letter he'd left behind. Or she'd left behind. He happened to glance out the window and saw Maria walking along, soaked from head to toe. In an instant, Osawa was consumed with rage. Maria had left a note. It read, "Dad, you only pay attention to Hitomi. You're too busy with work to play with me, so I'm running away from home." Struck by an impulse he didn't quite understand, he ran from the room, heading for the front door. Maria had just gotten back inside. Osawa met her silently in the entryway. Wet strands of hair clung to the girl's forehead as she looked up at her father with a bitter glare. "You don't care what happens to me, do you?" Impulsively, he slapped her face. Maria's cheek turned red and tears welled up in her eyes. Osawa's anger transformed abruptly into guilt. God, I'm so fucked up. He gazed down at the palm of his hand and saw a tiny spot of blood. He was shocked by the recognition of what he'd just done. And then he was afraid. Afraid that his daughter could bring such raw emotion out of him and make him do something so thoughtless. Is something wrong, Mr. Osawa? Hajiwara leaned in, looking concerned. Osawa came back into the moment with a start and realized he had buried his face in his hands. "No," he muttered, looking up. "Just getting angry, yelling at people. I'm not good with that sort of thing. Don't like it." Picked up the music player and fidgeted with the earbuds as he spoke. "Well, getting angry and yelling at people, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that's just human. It's human. To do those kinds of things." I often said that he was cold and mechanical. Her sarcasm only underlined the fact that he'd always lived with, but he didn't know how to conduct himself like a human being. "If you get angry, you show it," Kajiwara said. "If you get sad, you show it. It's human nature to let other people know how we're feeling after all." "But what if doing that hurts the other person?" "That's when you apologize, sir." It occurred to Osawa that he'd never tried to tell anyone how he felt before. He'd never felt the need to. And yet, right now, he suddenly felt that if his daughters were to appear before him, he might blurt out everything he'd ever left unsaid. It was a terrifying thought. "Darling?" I opened the door and stepped into the room. "The detectives are asking for you. Seems there's been a development." "We'll be right there." Osawa and Kajiwara hurried out of the room. Oh shit. Well, I think I know where to go for that. There we go. Before the news was shared with the Osawas, the members of the investigation team quietly briefed Detective Kajiwara. Osawa and I sat on the sofa on the far side of the room, watching. They could see Kajiwara go pale. He wiped the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief several times. Bad news, Osawa thought. Mr. Osawa, ma'am. Kajiwara shuffled his way over to them at last. We've just gotten word from headquarters. Right now, the task force is in an uproar after a change in direction from the higher-ups. The detectives who were on the scene have been ordered to discontinue the kidnapping investigation. He hesitated ominously. Osawa braced himself. Please, let's hear it. It would seem that your daughter Maria is safe. What? Osawa felt an unexpected urge of relief. You mean it? The case has been solved? Added I. For a moment they almost sounded like a happily married couple. It was only the stern look on Kajiwara's face that gave them pause. However, as of yet, we do not have her in custody. I'm not sure I understand, Osawa said. You know she's alive, but you don't have her. How? Deep furrows appeared in Kajiwara's forehead. I'm sorry, sir. The information we've received from up top is complicated. You've confirmed that she was able to escape confinement. It's just... The detective gave every appearance of holding something back. If there's something you need to tell us, then just say it, Osawa told him. It would seem that Maria has been infected with the virus. Infected? Osawa felt as if a taloned claw had just clutched his heart. It's not one that I've ever heard of before, but apparently it's called the Uwa virus. Osawa's vision went dark. He felt as if he'd plunged into a black void of despair. Don't say that word. This is a Spike Chunsoft game. Don't say that word. You're gonna make me scared. Darling? I asked raspily. She didn't need to put her fears into words. Osawa felt them just as plainly in his own gut. You're an expert on virology, aren't you, Mr. Osawa? Kajiwara said. Are you familiar with this Uwa virus? Osawa held up a hand to forestall further questions. There was no time for that. How many hours ago was she infected? He demanded. I wasn't told that much. Is that important to know, sir? Depending on when Maria was infected, we may or may not still be. Osawa trailed off abruptly as the reality of the situation struck home. This wasn't the same as when Hitomi had been infected. Right now, there was no way of getting Tanaka's cooperation, which meant that there was no way of accessing the antiviral storage. In other words, getting the cure to Maria would be impossible. Osawa's head swam. Detective Kajiwara, I beg of you. Your people need to catch Tanaka as soon as possible. I can't share the details, but if you don't, something terrible is going to happen. Just then, Kajiwara's cell phone rang. He picked up quietly. What did you say? The detective's shout shattered the anxious silence that had fallen. I shuddered visibly at the outburst. Kajiwara nodded sharply. Still listening, more creases formed in his forehead. Understood. I'll let them know. He hung up. All eyes were on him. That was headquarters. Osawa swallowed the lump in his throat. He could feel himself quaking all over. A minivan we believe belonged to the syndicate exploded near Jinan in Shibuya. A body was found amongst the burning wreckage of the vehicle. Who was it? Osawa interjected. Tell me! Please don't let it be Maria. Please don't let it be Hitomi. Kajiwara took a breath before speaking. We've conclusively identified the remains as Mr. Tanaka's. No! The cry was visceral, almost bird-like. Osawa looked around in surprise. It was I. It's not true! You're lying! Her shrill screams reverberated through the room. Osawa felt like he wanted to scream too. With Tanaka dead, there was no way to get the antiviral. Which meant that Maria was going to die. What a fucking insane way to end that one. So that just leaves Maria that we have to save. We need to make sure someone else's actions can ensure that Hana Toyama crosses paths with her again. Then Maria will talk to her and avoid the minivan. Yeah, that music was insane. So this might it. Achi took a quick leap to one side. He managed to avoid crashing into her by taking a tumble himself, but the girl was still definitely a bit shocked. Sorry about that, Achi said. Are you alright? But the girl didn't answer, or even meet Achi's eye. She just looked around as if in a daze. Was she waiting on someone maybe? Odd kid, Achi thought. I hope she's okay. Once more, Achi and Hitomi set off running. Achi led Hitomi to an old multi-tenant building. They hurried inside and went on upstairs. There we go. Eventually, I muster up the energy to start walking around town, heading nowhere in particular. The billboard outside of a department store displays a poster of some female musician. She must be pretty popular because lots of passers-by stop to take a good look. I catch sight of little Hana in front of the billboard. She's showing something to a woman there, some colorful sheets of paper. Woman looks a lot like the musician in the poster. Moreover, I have the feeling that I've seen her someplace before. Where could I have seen her? And having amnesia is a real pain in the ass. I have no way of knowing whether I've forgotten something or I had no memory of it in the first place. The woman looks through the papers Hana held out to her, nodding approvingly at each one, and I can hear her murmur with admiration. Hana! I wave as I scamper on over to her. As I do, the woman abruptly hurries off. Hey, we meet again, I say. Hana just gives me a bored look. Who was that just now? I ask. I don't know. Hana quickly gathers up her belongings and starts walking briskly away. Oh, hey, wait up! I call out. The girl ignores me. She's moving at a jog now, heading from from Spanish Hill towards Koandori. Ah! As she steps out onto Koandori, she trips and falls down hard. The contents of her bag spill out on the road. Oh, whoops. Catching up to her, I gather up some of the fallen pages. What's this? There are poems written on the colored paper. Copies of a prose poem called The False Monsoon. The poem delicately details the wavering emotions of an adolescent girl. Also, in a clever twist, if the text is read horizontally rather instead of vertically, it tells about a father's worries over his only daughter, who is now of marriable age. Hana's genius will soon be discovered by Aya Kamiki. She will go on to become a popular songwriter. A look of embarrassment crosses Hana's face, and she snatches the pages out of my hands. Don't touch those. Those are for sale. For sale? I'm selling poems that I wrote. Oh, wow, that's incredible. She looks surprised by the compliment. Incredible? My friends at school said they were dumb. That's not true. I only saw a little just now, but I thought it was a really good poem. You're just saying that. I've been out here in Shibuya for weeks trying to sell these, but the only person who's bought one was that lady just now. Hana lets out a mournful sigh. Well, what are you out here selling poems for anyway? I thought maybe it'd help pay back our debts. Huh? Okay, that's not something I'd expect to hear from a little kid. My dad's in real deep, she continues. Topic makes me think of Mr. Yanagashita. Yesterday's my day for meeting people mired in debt. I'm only in elementary school, so I can't get a part-time job. Japan's Labor Standards Act prohibits the hiring of children under the age of 15. For certain jobs within the entertainment industry, however, employers can obtain permission from the Labor Standards Inspection Office for younger children to work. I hate child actors. I don't hate them myself. I hate the practice. I understand there's a need. Obviously, you want to have a child in a live-action movie. You have to have a child. But, like, I hate child actors as a concept. I'm impressed. She's so brave. She's maybe a little hard to approach, but she is just a kid after all. She's so brave, I want to give her a hug. Oh, Anna! I hear a strange wailing call from behind me. Startled, I turn around to see Mr. Toyama standing there, tears streaming from his eyes. Anna! I'm so sorry. I had no idea you were trying so hard to... Toyama rushes up to the girl. It's quite the emotional father-daughter reunion. Or at least that's how it looks until Hana slaps her father across the face with her bundle of papers. What was that for? Don't you give me that. I'm sick of all of this running around. The sound of those smacks came from right behind me. What the fuck? Why did they mix them like that? Why do they feel like they came from behind me? What the shit? Oh my god. Okay. Alright. I legit thought something on my shelf was falling behind me. She delivers more well-placed smacks with her little craft project. Okay, Toyama says at last. I know you're upset, but I have to ask you for just one thing. Then we can see about getting through the day, yeah? Okay, but just one. I can't help but find this ornery interaction kind of charming. You two get along really well, don't you? I say. Yep, nope. The two give simultaneous contradictory replies. Then Hana sullenly starts to walk off with Toyama tottering after her. Such a weird little sight that I can't help but laugh. Well, later then. Further along Koendori, I come across a car on the roadside that's spectacularly aflame. A group of onlookers surrounds it in a confused uproar. A crowd of people stood and stared. They'd seen his face before. Now they know he really was a House of Lord. It seemed almost unreal. Like I'm looking at a set for a TV show or something. I stand there, staring into the flames. Huh? What's that? I can see something. The raging heat makes the air shimmer. The scent of dry sand fills my nose. A gust of searing wind tugs at my hair. Yeah. The Roach timeline. The Roach. Oh, God. Where am I? Decaying roads. Decaying houses. A decaying city. And the people who live there. People who live. People who live. People who live. There's someone by my side. Someone is with me, watching all of this. It's a girl. The person with me is a girl. Slightly younger than me. She says something to me. Anna Ismi. Oh, Jacob's Ladder. Cat's Cradle. Cat's Cradle. That's my voice now. Cat's Cradle? Whose voice was that? What's going on? Who am I talking to? Yeah, Cat's Cradle. I'm showing someone how to do a cat's cradle with a string. But who? Who am I showing how to do cat's cradle? Canon. The word Kanon echoes in my mind. Head. Whatever. Kanon. I utter the name aloud. The images floating through my mind are beginning to break up and vanish. I feel like for a brief moment, at least, I'd caught hold of some of the edges of my lost memories. It's right. Kanon. As soon as I say it, I'm filled with a powerful sense of duty. There's something I'm responsible for, something that I needed to do, and if I don't, this Kanon person is going to be in grave danger. Calm down. Just calm down. I'm pleading with myself now, fighting the impulse to take off running. If I did, where would I go? I have no idea what my destination or my goal even is. Please, just remember something. Please. Please. I gaze out at the flames, practically praying now. Don't move. A voice hisses in my ear, and I feel something hard press against my back. I don't need to turn around to recognize whose voice it is. I thought you said you didn't have any business with... I did a little thinking, says the man with the cane slowly. About how I might lure out Hitomi Osawa, see? I'm gonna use you as bait. Ooh. Oh my god. Baby! We've reached 4 o'clock. Oh boy. So this stream is going to be a bit shorter since I want to start fresh on a new time block next stream. But yeah, I like the twists in that previous chapter, and it was finally nice to see, well, nice, quote unquote. It was finally relieving to see the intro event with the car explosion, with the van exploding, and how it turns out that Tanaka was the one inside the vehicle. And yeah, that makes sense because I played the Ayakamiki song right before it exploded, so, and there was also a Tomi on the window banging. Yeah. Is it Teteno? I feel like it has to be Teteno. Because he obviously is working with the detectives. He's obviously working with the police department on this. But he's also kind of going rogue. And he has his own agenda. And he also let Al Karawan go. I'm not sure though. I'm strongly suspecting that it's Teteno. But I'm open for other options. Oh my god, I just noticed how dirty Minori Kawo looks in this right now. He still looks exploded. I wonder if any other characters get that sort of treatment further on, because I noticed, you know, like, obviously you have Tama turning into Maria, and then Maria getting new clothes. But Minori Kawa being covered in like soot is just funny as shit. So with all of that said, I hope you all have a great night in the meantime, and I hope you all wait for the next stream, whenever that is. Pay no attention to the screen. Good night, everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.